Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver Sunday. Tonight, let's talk really slow. There's only 4 of us, so we're going to have to spend some time thinking about what it is we're going to say.
You're starting to kind of.
If anybody wants to just say one-word answers, tonight's the night.
Oh
to do it.
no! Don't do that.
Nice.
Yeah, so tonight we are talking about board games. Hopefully you tuned into our Wednesday crew, always a lively bunch, and they talked about board games. And of course, I've just been informed they spent most of the day talking about D&D, which we could, one of the things we might, since they're not here and can't defend themselves, we can debate whether that's actually a board game or not, and whether we should.
I think it is.
Oh!
Don't use it online.
Yeah.
If you have paper in front of you and you have little characters on your board, it is a board.
There you go.
Depends on how
That's
you
true.
play it.
Yeah,
I think it depends.
It's iffy.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
You roll
I
the
think, yeah.
dice.
You
got
do
dice
roll dice.
to roll.
Yeah, that's true. But
I'd call it a board game, but
the a lot of the original D&Ds though, they didn't actually use boards. They just
you
they
did.
just
You had a
dis-
map. You had a map. The DM would draw it.
But
I know that because my younger brother did that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I played a long time ago in the '80s. I played with a group, and they didn't use a map. They were just talking, and like, here's what you see, here's what happens, and then you just had a conversation. And you rolled the dice.
We had
still.
a map and painted figures and everything.
Now they ended up doing that, and they got real extensive. I mean, the maps did, right? So first, we're jumping right into this. We haven't even done any introductions. So yeah, I'm the host. I'm Roland. I'm the head honcho. Where's my card? Because see my card, Silverline says I'm the head honcho. So which just means I kind of wrangle stuff, try to keep folks in line, which is, with creative types, it's kind of like herding cats. Look at that, we've already got a couple questions. Yeah, Jacob, hold on, Jacob, hold your thoughts. Anyway, so I am the writer of Cat and Mouse and Trumps, Rejects, and Silverline Team Up, Champion and Miss Fury, and a couple other books. But we're gonna go around Murderer's Row like we always do here. Up next is Curtis. Curtis, tell folks who you are.
Hello, I'm Curtis Fujita. I'm the creative director at Silverline. I also edit the book Kalis, and I'm a artist who's worked in comic books, video games, and animation. That's me.
And I have my fingers crossed that we've got an announcement that hopefully we'll be making first of 2021 about something Curtis is working on.
Yes, I agree.
I have fingers crossed.
I have my toes crossed and my fingers crossed.
I'll put it in front of my shirt so you can actually see my fingers crossed, right? Up next is Aaron. Aaron, tell people who you are.
I am the penciler for the Fire Rush series, which I think we're getting, hopefully soon be launching the second issue. And
hopefully.
then I also draw and illustrate my own comic, which you can find in Webtoons and on my store, Godlings.
And you just finished number 9, right?
Number 9, yes. I finished issue 9, and I'm already on the second page of issue 10. So I'm jumping into it right away.
Looking right along, yep. Excellent. Roberta, tell people who you are.
Hi, I'm Roberta Conroy, and I've been coloring comics since the 90s. Took a little of a, I don't know, a pause for some graphic design. So here I am back loving comics again, and I'm the colorist for 2 new series and one older one. One is Cat and Mouse, and the other one's the Team Up Champion and Miss Fury.
That Silverline siren call pulled you back, didn't
It did.
You know what? I will never tire of telling that story about recruiting Roberta. For those of you who missed it, somebody posted something somewhere. I can't remember what it was, and Roberta's like, "Oh, I colored that page. It was an Ultraverse page." And then the on Facebook, and then the comment thread went along, and Roberta said, "I miss coloring comics," and I went, "Oh, really?"
I heard your voice saying that in that.
That's right. And so I dropped her a line. I'm like, "Do you really miss it, or are you just waxing nostalgic?" And she goes, "No, I think it'd be fun." So we swapped some emails, and bada bing, bada boom. Here she is, right?
Silverline.
That's right. Lots of fun. So yeah, we've already got a couple comments tonight. Jacob Bear says, "What board games are we playing tonight?" Jacob, we're probably going to talk about a whole bunch of them, I would think. And then he said, "Are you not streaming as much anymore because you don't like me?" I took a shower. No, it's we just we took the I think we just took a 2-week break during Comic Conway, and then that was followed by Thanksgiving. So it looked like we took about a 3-week break, but we were still streaming, but we were streaming with Conway, with the convention. So we were on, just not on our regular days. I'm working with something. I got something I'm trying to figure out that will let me schedule some, because I've taken the Conway sessions that we did and I've broken them up into the individual panels, and I'm trying to figure out some way that will actually let me schedule them to go live on YouTube and Facebook, so that we can do so. Because this is going to happen again here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have Christmas, and we're going to have New Year's, and I'm sure we're probably going to take us a 2-week break for those 2 weeks. So it would be nice if we could still get something out there. Right. That that maybe that even if it's a shorter something, hey, here's a panel that we did for Comic Conway, enjoy. But we still have content. But I'm still working on that. I still haven't figured out exactly how to make it happen. Phil Leon says, "Hello, good peeps."
Hey, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Hey.
And for those of you paying attention, Phil is one that has been recently recruited to the Silverline ranks. So Phil is coloring White Devil, that is written by R.A. Jones and penciled by Jackson Reddick. So and inked by Mike Keeney and Chuck Bordell. So very, very excited about that.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to see White Devil. I don't know, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
I've done mine, like, actually that one sounds pretty cool. I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, it is. It's a good book. And the cool thing about it is you can't see it, but I have issues 2, 3, and 4 right up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
They're already all penciled. Issue 2 is completely inked. So Phil, if you're paying attention, as soon as you're done with 1, I'll put 2 in your hands. So 2 is completely inked. 3 is in the hands of Chuck Bordell. 4 needs inks also, and I can't remember if it's lettered or not. I don't think it's lettered, so I think it would need lettering. But yeah, we've got a really good head start on that. Royal Airship says, "Hey, all, looking great."
Hey.
And before I forget, you can't see it. I don't actually have a stream up, so I don't know what we're seeing here. No, I don't want that. Here we go. So okay, yeah, so you can't see Brett. My son Brett is behind the scenes. He is his credit here on my screen says the unpaid producer. So Brett's the one that turns the knobs and adjusts the buttons. Wait a minute, that's the other way around, isn't it? Pushes the buttons and turns the knob. Anyway, Brett's the one who's worked behind the scenes to make sure that we're streaming on all of our locations and so on and so forth. Phil says, "I'm loving it. Glad to be on board." We're glad to have you, Phil. We think, and hopefully you'll think that pretty quickly as well. I know that I'm biased when I say this, but we think we've assembled a pretty good crew of creators here that all love comics and enjoy making comics and are good at doing it. So, okay, well, tonight, board games. So, based on our early getting going, we should probably define what is a board game. So, what do you guys think? If I say board game, there's a tradition. I think there's a traditional mindset. What do you guys think?
Well, I would think board game would have to be some sort of playing board. Now, the only reason I say that's because if a board game is anything, then why do they call card games and board games? It would all just be games. So I do think there's a distinction there. So I think it kind of has to have a playing board. Now, Roberta, I can see how you can say like D&D could be, because if you're drawing the dungeon on the map, like the dungeon map, that would constitute a board.
See, I think, I agree with that, but I think my argument would be you could play D&D without a map, without a board, right?
Yeah.
You can't really play Monopoly unless you have the board.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so I think that's a different. And now I didn't play a whole lot of D&D when we're talking about role-playing games, but I played a lot of Superworld. And Superworld is basically D&D with superheroes.
Okay.
Instead of rolling up wizards and elves and trolls and stuff like that, you roll up superheroes, and I played that for all 5 years I was in college. Whoops, did I just say I was in college 5 years? In my, I was on the 5-year, 4-year plan.
I was on the 6-year, 4-year plan.
Oh,
I know.
Yeah.
It didn't tell you about those extra 2 years?
Well, Northridge earthquake, that's one.
Oh, yeah.
Were you in college when that happened?
I was in Malibu when that happened.
That's what I thought.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you weren't still in college, were you?
I was.
I did not
Barely.
realize that. Oh,
Barely. I
wow.
was on my last couple classes and they got stripped.
Wow.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I mean, I
know
knew
that.
you were at Malibu during the earthquake. I just didn't realize you were still in school.
Yeah.
I just assumed the only one still in school was Curtis.
High school.
Remember, I was night shift.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were night shift.
College all day, night
I
shift.
was thinking how to clear the air about the board game thing. I think the broader term is tabletop gaming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So tabletop gaming would include like Warhammer 40K, role-playing games, role-playing games. And what I mean by that is Dungeons and Dragons, not,
Right.
when you get dressed as the Dutch boy and somebody's the chief. But I mean, yeah, tabletop games, I think, right? I think that would be the broader term. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I'm not convinced we're here tonight to talk about tabletop games. We're here to talk about board games. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So Roberta, do you want to draw? Do you want to color while we're streaming?
I was just trying to get that set up.
I saw you looking around and it made me think,
Yeah,
I wonder if she's coloring. Okay, so
I just might be able to pull something up for you.
okay, Brett. So as soon as she just
Ready?
make it happen. Yeah, so I think of there's a couple of things. I think of traditional board games as Monopoly, Candyland. I can't think of any board games now.
Yeah.
I always thought it was funny that would you consider the Ouija board was actually distributed by was it Milton Bradley or something? Those Parker brothers.
yeah.
Is
Well,
that a board game?
Well,
It's got a board.
It's Satan's board game,
Dastardly.
I always thought it was so funny that Parker brothers, it was like, share a Ouija board, no problem.
That's funny. I'm not sure I've seen one, but I'm not sure I ever knew anyone who owned one.
Yeah. I remember Candyland, Monopoly. What was some of the other? The one I've never played that everyone talks about all the time is Risk. I've never played Risk.
Really? Yeah. See, I played
Yeah,
Risk a lot as a kid.
yeah. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I mean, I should probably attempt to play that.
I, I,
It's a
I have
classic.
board games right up there in my closet. They don't come down that much now. So here's kind of why I wanted to kind of roughly define them, because when I think of board games, I think of things more like Avalon Hill board game, all war games, right? But
Yeah,
things like the Third Reich. I have, of course, I have Civilizations. This is not Sid Meier's Civilization. This is the original Civilization, in which you start out in the Mediterranean, and based on your population, your population grows, and you have wars by population. Literally, it's what
yeah.
your population grows more than your opponents, and that's how you take over their land. You can build roads and advancements and things like that. But I also have Diplomacy, which is, any of you ever heard of Diplomacy?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I used to argue, and of course I haven't made this argument in a long time. I used to argue that Diplomacy was the best board game ever made.
Wow.
Well, it's basically, Diplomacy is World War I Europe. Okay, the guy who created it modeled it off of the chessboard. So the original Diplomacy had the exact number of spots that a chessboard did, right? Each I can't do the math that quickly. So there were seven countries. Each of them controlled 3 supply centers, except for Russia that controlled 4. So what's that math, Curtis? 6 times 3 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And then there were about, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that, free supply centers on the map. And of course, that's where the war started. You as you went after the supply centers, you began to come into conflict with your neighbor. But here's the difference. So Diplomacy was a little bit like Risk without all the armies and the dice, right? There were no dice in Diplomacy. Literally, Diplomacy is the map of Europe, and you have markers that represent armies and navies. That's it. When you start the game, you have 30 minutes to diplomatize. And literally what that means is you go around and you talk to everybody and say, hey, if I'm England, and Curtis is France, I'll say, hey Curtis, Aaron's Germany. Man, I just think that I think that he's about to invade you. And because the Germans always invade France,
Invading.
right?
I know.
So I'm like, why don't you help me get my armies across over into northern France, into that area, and then we'll fight Germany together. And you're like, yeah. Now Roberta's Russia, right? And she's like, she's coming to me, right? She's like, hey, I don't really like France. They sent me some bad truffles one time, and I'm gonna like, Roberta, you're too far away. You can't do anything. Yeah, but I was thinking maybe you could attack France. I can attack Germany, and then you can have half of Germany, because they'll come and fight me. And then while you're attacking France, you can actually go in France and Germany, right? And so it's basically Diplomacy. And then what you do is you actually write your orders. You have, you start off with 3 units, and you write your orders. This unit goes here, okay? If 2 units try to go to the same place, literally it's a bounce. They just bounce. Not one unit is stronger than the other one. But if I've got one unit trying to go to one place, and I've got another unit up here that supports that move, right? Then we're 2-1, and then I force myself into this place, and then this opponent then has to retreat. That's it. That's the game. And your goal is to occupy the supply centers at the end of it. The turns are done in springs and fall, right? So you have a spring move and a fall move. At the end of the fall, you recount your supply centers. And I can't remember the numbers exactly, but once you got so many units, you could declare victory. Once you get supply centers, you declare victory. I have a friend who played it and says he'll never play it again. And the reason he goes, because you have to break somebody's trust somewhere in order to win the game. He said you can't be honest in the game, or you'll get run over. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. He goes, yes it is, right? And he's like, you can't do it. And so he refuses to play because he's like, I don't like people lying to me, because I get mad and I take it personal.
Even in the context of just a board game? Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So he won't. It is again. It's a great game. I used to use it in my ESL classes when I taught English as a second
Yeah.
language. And one of the things that I would do is to make sure I put, different speaking languages on the opposing teams, so they had to speak English. That was my teaching English to them, right? They had to speak English in order to do any kind of diplomacy between the two of them.
That's cool. That's pretty
That
cool.
is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that game.
Yeah.
So does there have to be a literal board or the concept of a board, like Battleship? Would you consider Battleship a board
Battleship's
game?
I don't know.
Or would you consider it like Bingo meets Warfare? I mean, what were
It
your?
is a board, though, I think.
It is,
because
right?
You
Yeah.
have to touch different parts of it, and
Yeah.
it's very interactive physically, so I'd say so.
Yeah. I would say, yeah. It just has to be like a flat surface. I mean, you're thinking like a traditional like cardboard covered, like a piece of cardboard covered with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Is that it?
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, this is diplomacy. This is literally the board, right? So
Cool.
Oh, it's like
That's one of those ones. That's
Wow.
cool.
it's one of those ones. Where's England? Right. So here's the board.
Nice.
Yeah, and you can see all the little black dots. Those are your supply centers, right? So, and you can see the countries there. The red, that's Austria, Hungary. You got Turkey there in yellow. Russia is under this hand, probably white. Yeah. So seven nationalities.
Nice.
Yeah. It's again, like I said, I make the argument it's the best board game ever made. One of the things we used to do is we would photocopy our maps, and as we conquered territory, we would color it in just to agitate your opponents, right? Oh, look, I'm coloring in my map and you're not.
So that brings about an important question.
Okay.
When folks play board games, do you play them literally, or do you have your own house rules? Like I know Monopoly, sometimes people have like a house rule or something like that they just kind of agree, or are you guys like by the book? It has to be exactly what Milton Bradley said, or whatever is in the rules. What's everybody?
My house. I got into with and I haven't played them in a while. With my nephews and some of my friends. Have you guys ever played games that the game plays against you, like the cooperative games?
I know what you're talking about, but I've never played one of those.
Yeah, so like we have these D&D, like literally D&D board games that you all play as a party, and then you fight against the game itself. There's another game that we played for a while called Gloomhaven, which was
that the one where you go attack the castle, or you're in the castle being attacked?
No, Gloomhaven. No, Gloomhaven is just a humongous. I mean, literally. I mean, the box is like that big. It is humongous, and it takes like a few years to play. And it's played
years.
Yeah, I mean the book like it's for like all these maps. So you have all these different pieces, and so you can start out these 5 characters. You play through the game. They actually have boxes. I haven't opened all the boxes yet. There's like 20 other boxes of these different characters that you play again. So you play your character and you have like a retirement goal. So if you go through the game and you play all these like sort of miniature strategic, like entering dungeons or whatever, and then as you get to the end of a dungeon in the storybook, you could choose to go here or there, and it connects, so it's kind of like its own thing. But as you get towards the end to doing your character, like if he wants to gain so much gold or so, you retire that character, and then based on the card, you choose another character. And so this game could take up to a year or two. They have a sequel to Gloomhaven. It's really fun, but you play against the game, and the game is played completely with cards.
Interesting.
And so the cards is how you can actually level up your characters by choosing different cards.
See, I would actually call that a card game and not a board game, right?
Yeah, but there's a board. There's miniatures. It's a combination and stuff. But that game got really hard because every time you would play certain cards, you would have to discard a card for that round. And so we actually made house rules on that game to make it more fun for ourselves. And the D&D one was the same way. The Dungeons and Dragons board game was like viciously hard against us. So working together, we were like, no, let's make up some house rules so we're not just getting getting destroyed like every other round. So that way. Now, if it was a competitive game, I don't know if I'd make house rules.
Yeah.
because of competitive. But if you're working together, we would make house rules just so we'd
Yeah.
have more fun.
I would say the only time we have anything that you might consider house rules, it would be on card games that have just kind of been passed down, learning to play in the family.
Yeah.
Like we play a card game called Hand and Foot. This is not about card games, although we should probably do one about card games.
Yeah.
Here, let me actually write that down. Card games.
Card.
But essentially what you do is you deal out your cards into a hand and to a foot, right? And then you have to play it's a little bit like rummy, but you have to play out of your hand before you can actually get into your foot. And if your opponent plays out of their hand and their foot before you do, then you add up all the points, and that's how, the one with the most points is the loser, because you're trying to get rid of all your points, right? But there's no written rules for that. So it's just something that, a grandmother learned from her friends and passed it down to us. So when we sit down to play, we're like, okay, what are the rules now?
Yeah, because you forget.
Yeah, because we don't remember, because we don't play pretty much on family gatherings and stuff. And I think there's something else. There was a game called King's Reverse, which is it's just like Uno. It's Uno, but with a regular deck of cards.
Okay. Have you folks ever heard of a game called Hyborian War? You ever heard of that?
I have, but I've never played it.
It sounds like is that Conan?
Yeah, it was my step cousins used to play it, and it was in the world of Conan, and it was for all intents and purposes a board game, but it was, of course, this is pre-internet. It was mail in. It was a mail game. So you would have to kind of like have all your armies and I wouldn't say troops because it's all like barbarian stuff. You would have your tribes, I guess, and you would have to put your marching orders in. Everybody would send it in. Then the company would kind of put everybody in the position and say who won, and then they would ship a newsletter out. And they did this thing for like years and years and years. But yeah,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard I think there was a newer Conan board game. It seems like if you look up board games, there's a board game for everything now.
Yeah.
And I think there was a Conan one, and that's what. But I didn't know there was.
I played Diplomacy that way.
Did you?
I have. I played Diplomacy where you actually write letters to the emperor or the leader of the other country, and you have like a month, right? And it's like a real-time game, so you write letters back and forth to the leaders. Then you have to mail in your orders to the game master, and then the game master adjudicates all the moves and sends out the results to all the players, and then you just start it all over again.
That's cool.
Now the internet's changed that a little bit, so you can play online, pretty quickly.
That's cool. I know it's kind of off the subject, but since trying to fill some airtime, you're talking about sending letters to the the emperor or whoever.
Yeah.
So it reminds me when I was in high school, which was when I was in Malibu Comics, I would do all my homework and try and get them as fast as I could so I could focus on comic book stuff. So I had to write a letter from the frontier, like I was a settler. And it was a full letter I was supposed to do. I was supposed to put all the historical information for my history class. And I think I wanted to just read comics that night. So I cheated. And what I did is I started writing the letter like, oh, dear Mary Beth, life is so beautiful here on the plains. I'm like, oh my God, the Indians are attacking. I was hit with an arrow, and I just dragged the pen to the bottom of the paper. They were not amused, but
I would have given you an A for that. I'm like, that's brilliant.
So, there's your letter writing.
Sprinkle a little ketchup on it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. A little blood drops at the bottom.
But somehow he managed to put it in an envelope and send it. I don't know how.
Yeah. We've all seen Dances with Wolves, so
Yeah. So I was trying to think. I know it's funny. For a board game, I know my nephews really got into. It was an Alien versus Predator board game.
Oh,
where you
really?
can actually play 3 factions: either the Marines, the Aliens, or the Predator.
Cool.
And you all fight. Each one has different rules, and you all fight against each other. And that got really, really fun because the Predator could vanish. Like you move like a little dot around, and then you basically they had it like these little flat tokens. Could you actually buy miniatures for the game?
Yeah.
So there's different classes. So a lot of times you're not supposed to know who you're facing until like you meet them in a hallway. So you can move your guys around as these little like they look like flat chips until they're seen, and so that way you can kind of like coordinate where you're going to place your characters, but the other people in the game can't see what you're doing until they encounter you, and then it's either like somebody good or somebody bad. And that game was really fun.
It's like the fog of war.
Yeah, basically.
A lot of war games do that kind of thing.
Yeah, hide the pieces so that you don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, do you play a lot of board games, Roberta? I mean, it seems like you play more.
I play more than I used to because we have a 6-year-old here at the house, so we play with him.
Oh, do you?
I got out Mousetrap, which is my childhood favorite.
Oh, cool!
Oh,
yeah, that's a great one.
Really fun to play that one because you have to build a piece at a time.
Yeah.
And then when it's all done, you get to lower it. Whoever lands on the proper square gets to lower it. And
that's a
it
great
catches
one.
a mouse, and it's really fun. So
I know we used to. No, I was saying, did you ever play a game called Scotland Yard? Has anybody ever played?
I think I've heard of it.
I don't think I've even heard of that.
Not like
it was a really fun game. I don't even know if they make it anymore. It was like a board game I used to play with my dad, and he was always really good because one guy would play like Mr. X, and you guys are other detectives, and Mr. X only appears on the board at like every 5 turns. So again, like you don't know, and you have tickets to take like taxis, which are shorter routes, subway. I think subway is the longest route, or like car. And so the idea is you have to land on the spot where Mr. X is, even though you don't know. And so you're chasing him around, and that was really fun. My dad was the best at Mr. X. He would always destroy us. We could never catch him. So,
sounds good.
yeah,
that's cool. That's cool.
I loved Clue. That was
Clue.
Clue,
yeah. Clue's really fun.
Played it in a while though.
Isn't that one of the games that they have like a lot of variations, like Monopoly, like they have Star Wars Monopoly? Don't they have something like with Clue, like Star Wars Clue, and all these other different ones?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
would you folks consider chess and checkers board games? I mean, or like
I would consider them classic board game. Yeah, I was going to say, to me, I think that's a classic board game.
Yeah.
You know, that Chinese checkers. You know, even though it's played with marbles, it's still on a quote unquote a board. You know, I think that would be what I would call a classic board game.
Yeah, the one I never did play and I always wanted to try was backgammon. Never
you know,
did play it.
my wife and I played that. I guess when we first got married, we I don't know how we ended up doing it, but we got us a backgammon board and we played it and really liked it. So we said, oh, this is we really like this. So we went out and bought us a super nice one, right? And we played and played and played, and then the kids came along and we stopped playing. And then we had a flood in our house. And it got destroyed. The super nice one was on the floor, so it got destroyed in the flood. And it was like, man, yeah.
Oh well.
We just bought a cheapo one here just several months ago, and she was looking at me, I guess just last week, and she said, we bought that thing to play backgammon and we've yet to play. I'm like, I know. So
it's hard sometimes. Do you play board games a lot, Curtis, or have you?
I'm more of a like Dungeons and Dragons role playing game kind of guy. Kind of like the extent. I got really deep into that with my friends, especially back when we were at Malibu Comics.
Tim DeVar and
Keith Conroy, and the best part about doing that with guys that are all artists from a comic book company is they would draw everything out. So it would be, and I can say it now because I think a statute of limitations, but they would be like at Malibu and they would be like 4:59, works about them, and they would be like sketching stuff for the role playing game that night using the copier.
Yeah.
And the best part is, so every time a character showed up, they would pull out this beautiful designed character in full color, and that was really cool. In fact, you mentioned Tim DeVar, a good friend of mine, and he directs animation and storyboards and stuff. He, I heard, played a Star Wars game, role-playing game. He game mastered a Star Wars game years back, and it was the best idea I've ever heard of for a Star Wars sequel. And it's not his property, so I guess I can say it's. He had these amazing character designs where imagine like instead of the Sith, there were Jedis that were all in pure white. like stark white. And the idea is that there would be this alternate sect of Jedi that were like puritanical in nature. They were like this very hard line, over the top good guys, like, but technically they were bad. And it was about them coming in at the time that Luke Skywalker was trying to rebuild the Jedi. So
that's cool.
yeah, so instead of having like the bad guys being something really dark and evil, it would be the opposite. It would be like almost an ideological thing,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I thought that was
I remember we played, and I was one of those people, like every time my friends wanted to play board game or like role playing games like D&D or stuff, they would always get really into it, the DM,
Yeah.
and they would write a bunch of stuff, and then we'd play like 5 sessions, and then it would just fall apart. I mean, this was like every single case, and it was just like, but I do remember one of the funnier ones, and I always played with people who were like very like bloodthirsty, which is not really why I play. I like to do like, I mean, if you're in a role-playing game, there's so many, I mean, you could do anything else but just kill things. And I remember like in the Star Wars game, one of our guys played like a Wookiee, and we went into a bar and I think we're supposed to interrogate some guys in the bar to find some guy. We're supposed to get information. So we're coming up these thugs and we're trying to figure out how to like interrogate them or whatever. And like all of a sudden the guy plays the Wookiee's like, I throw a thermite grenade. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, he can't do that. And the DM's like, he already did it. It's gonna. I'm like, seriously, dude? It's like, he would blow up everything. I mean, like every time we try to figure out, he'd be like, okay, I'm blowing it. I'm like, okay. So it was actually kind of funny in hindsight, but I always get those characters who want to do nothing but kill everything. It's just,
you can always see funny things about people's personality. Like I don't know how I remember so many details of back when Roland and I worked at Malibu, just weird throwaway things people say. I remember Chris Holm, who was the editor-in-chief there, I guess he played Dungeons and Dragons, and I can't believe I remember this how many decades later. He had mentioned once in passing that his character in Dungeons and Dragons was like a knight or something called Christian the Good. And he was like, this knight in shining armor, but he was like this evil bastard who would do all these horrible things. But he would go into town and he had this chivalrous demeanor and he would cheat, the townspeople out of money. And, he was just this horrible character. But I remember him saying that was his character, was Christian the Good. And he was the absolute opposite. And it's just so telling about people's, personalities.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Your alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I did I did the same thing, and we played Dark Sun, which is a D&D spin-off, the Dark Sun series, and I played this sort of mantis character who's like a praying mantis, one of the races. And apparently this race likes to eat halflings. Like that's one of its food sources. I was playing with a halfling, and my friends were, and I was trying to play in character, so I was always making little jokes to the halfling character, like, any day I'm going to eat you. My friends got really annoyed, so apparently one game, like, we woke up from my camp and my friends were gone. Okay, they ditched me. And my character is one of these characters that if you betray him, he takes it personally and will go and revenge. So I systematically, I was like telepathic too. So I systematically hunted my friends down and ate them. And they got all mad. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to play in character. And they're like, no, this isn't fair. But that was hilarious.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're talking about role-playing games. Like I said, I played Super World. I started playing Super World probably when I was a freshman in college. And I played like every weekend for almost 5 years. Not quite every weekend, you know what I mean, though. But I mean, we the cool thing is that there were a couple of guys who played the whole time with me, right? So it wasn't just me, but it was me and well, BJ played a bunch, and then my good buddies Tim and Keith. And we always had, depending on where we were, we had others join us, right? Because like we were in the Hines, I had a couple other guys join us. But I actually played Demon, was a character that I played Super World with. I've got several character sheets on him.
Your character Demon, the one in Cat and Mouse?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Played him in Super World. Yeah, and we had we had a lot of fun. We had I still have those up in my closet too. Is like we took journals. We had journals of all our gameplay, and I located them not too long ago, and I'm like, I found I could tell you about every single game we ever played, and they were we used the real dates that we played. So occasionally we would fill something in, like, okay, you did this on Friday, and the next Friday we're doing again. Okay, so on Wednesday you guys had you had a meeting and you had to do this and you had to do that, or you had to go to the hospital and get this done, right? So there was kind of like busy work that they would do in between the week, and then when it came time to play on the weekend, then that they had taken care of all of that. But yeah, we played that game and we had a big board that we drew a map on, but it was a board that was lined out, a grid.
Yeah.
And then just we would draw on it for every session, and then it was it wasn't a dry erase, but it was a wet erase.
Yeah, I've seen that. My friend had one of those, and
yeah.
you can just erase off it. Yeah, those things are pretty cool.
Yeah, I still have all of those character sheets and all that stuff. I still have all that stuff.
I know. What was it Adventure Time? That cartoon that I think a lot of Adventure Time was based on his actual D&D adventures he had.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's been a few people that have written stories based on the adventures they made up. So.
Yeah, I know. The Dragonlance series by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Those are all based on their sessions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I thought. Yeah.
George R.R. Martin, and he edited the Wild Cards.
Yeah.
Those are based off of superhero or Superworld games.
Really?
Yep. They used to get together and play Superworld, and out of that was born the Wild Cards.
That's so cool. Yeah, the longest one I played was there was a Street Fighter role playing game by White Wolf, and
I knew some of the guys at White Wolf.
Oh yeah. That game we played for about 3 or 4 years with the same characters, and it was like an ongoing series where it was kind of like a good ensemble cast where everybody had this kind of different kind of character that kind of complemented each other and played off of each other. And
Did you play any of the original Street Fighter characters if you wanted?
No, you could, but for us it was like we had our own characters.
Right.
And like those guys were like the legacy characters way in the background that were like way too high level for us to
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like there would be some character you could fight inside the game or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had a Street Fighter role playing game. I guess I don't know why. I mean, it seems like they have role playing games of everything anymore, so I guess that shouldn't be surprising. But yeah, I remember somebody online was like making like a tabletop Street Fighter game, and I don't know whatever came of that.
I'm about to reveal my total geekness to you guys.
Oh, let's see.
So
really,
here's the box.
This is the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So this is the my original box. You see, it's in crappy shape. We got all my all the books in it, plus a few maps and stuff like that. All the rule books, character sheets. My box of dice.
Yeah, you gotta have those, man.
Yeah. This was published by Chaosium.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure. Chaosium. Yeah, Chaosium. But yeah, just a superhero game. Like D&D. Oh, that's the wrong notebook. I grabbed the wrong notebook. I thought I had the. I'm pretty sure I got all the character sheets and everything's still up here. Ha! Curtis, you'll like this.
Let's see.
Look what's on the back of this old notebook.
Oh, neat.
That's what the original Aquaman, right?
That's cool.
So here is character sheets.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
So, do you still have any D&D stuff, Curtis? The old D&D stuff.
They're in storage somewhere,
Yeah.
D&D had great artwork. I mean, that was like half the fun.
Oh, bet. Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah, it was what was it? The guy who did the original cover, it's not Elton. What is his last name? The artist who did the famous cover on the red box.
Well, Elmore, Larry Elmore.
Elmore.
Oh, I know Larry. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that the very original ones, they had this, I forget the arts, but there was this black and white kind of drawing. It wasn't always the best. It was kind of a little rudimentary in the original D&D books. My friends who are artists recently did a tribute to it, and they did all these drawings in the vein of those kind of crude, kind of weird, like 1970 inside illustrations. They just posted it all online. It was kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
I watched a documentary, and this might be on Netflix, it might be on YouTube, but it was literally about the art of D&D. And they went through and interviewed all the original artists and stuff. And oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you ever, I'll try to look it up and send you a link, Curtis, if you're interested. It's about an hour long, but it was really cool because I know like Larry Elmore, I've heard of these, but I've never seen their faces. So to see these guys, I'm like,
Larry
oh,
Elmore, yeah.
yeah. But to know who they are, they connect the faces. It was really cool. It was like the history of the artwork and stuff in D&D.
I saw Larry not too long ago, actually. So I'm at a convention and we hung out. He's from
What's he
Kentucky.
like?
Oh,
Is he from
he's
Kentucky?
Great, yeah, great guy. Yeah, fantastic guy. Yeah, he's super nice guy.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I'd love to. I'd love to meet. I mean, because some of those like the one Brahm, he was always like amazing. And then you find out how young he is. I'm like, that's not fair. The kid's like in his 20s or something. Like he's a young guy. Well, not now, but he was when he first started.
Well, the other guy was Jeff Easley was one of the big artists for D&D, and I remember hearing that one actor he's playing Deathstroke in the Zack Snyder Justice League.
Okay, I know.
Matt Maganello, I think his name. I guess he's actually a hardcore D&D kind of nerd, and so his wife, who's another actress, Sofia Vergara, she went ahead and she got Jeff Easley, one of the original D&D artists, to paint him in oil painting of his D&D character that he played when he was a kid.
So are you ready to come full circle with this?
Yeah.
One of the original founders, and I don't know his name, one of the original founders of D&D is also one of the founders of Full Sail, which is where I teach.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of original D&D stuff on display behind behind glass so that you can go in and look at it. Yep.
Dude, that'd be cool.
That's pretty cool.
Kasisi says, "Hey all, what's up, Kasisi? We're talking about board games tonight. See, this is the other couple of games I got out. Civilization.
Okay.
This is Civilization is one of those games now. If you mention it, people automatically think about Sid Meier's Civilization, which I play and it's fun, but it's totally different. This one is just a map of the, like I said, of the Mediterranean, and I can't remember how many civilizations you have, but you see, you can see that would be an example of a map. The 4, 3, 3, and the 1 and the 2. That's literally how much population you can hold. Each of the places can hold. And so when there's more population there, you have population and your opponent has population there, then you have to have a war. And the way you have a war is you literally just take one piece off at a time for each country, right? Until you're down to that number. So if I move in, 6 pieces and you move in 7 pieces, then we each take off 1. Oh, see, that would be 6 and 6 and 12, 13, right? So we each take off 1. That becomes 11. We each take off 1. That becomes 9. We each take off 1. That becomes 7. We each take off 1. That becomes 5. We each take off, and it's still not 4, right? So we each got to take off 1 more, and that becomes 3. And then that's how you fight a war.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you can see these things here. You can, part of what you do is you can learn how to make sails. You learn cloth making. You learn how to make roads. All these things, and your civilization literally advances by that way, and you're trying to go up through the ages until you reach the end. This box is full. It is heavy, just from the markers and all that kind of stuff. The cards, and there is a great big board there. So it's a lot of fun, but this is one of those that takes a while. This is kind of the monopoly of board game, because you can't sit down and finish this in an hour. You got to devote, a good 2-3 hours to it.
Yeah.
But I can't get anyone to play with me here because no one has that kind of time,
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing when I tried to get my friends to play Gloomhaven and stuff. It would be like we play every week, and it'd be like a 3 hour, and maybe a little over. And people they get bored or whatever. See, I enjoy those games. I enjoy the strategic element of those games, but some people just can't. Their attention span doesn't go that far.
Right.
What type of world is Gloomhaven in? Like, what is the setting?
It's like a medieval, like D&D type. It's its own world. It tells like a story of like this is gloom that you're fighting. So when you start out, like you start in the first. Like, so when you open up the book, it'll tell you it comes with a bunch of separate tiles, and it tells you how to arrange the tile for each sort of mission in this book. and they can flip it around, then how they arrange it, and then it tells you like certain rules, like you maybe have a time limit to do that. And then when you get to the end of whatever this little scenario you're playing, then you can choose to either, do this, go to like, like choose your own adventure books. Like you could do this and this, and base how you choose kind of like your route is how you start kind of going around the game. But apparently there's a story and an eventual end to it or whatever. The new Gloomhaven, you actually build like your own town and do that. I haven't played that one yet. This was a Kickstarter game. I mean, the Gloomhaven game made like millions of dollars on Kickstarter. It was
So
huge.
I have never looked up Gloomhaven before, ever.
Yeah.
I went to my Google while you were talking and typed in GLO, and Gloomhaven filled in. I'm
Yep.
like,
Very,
no,
very-
no, nope, ain't having it.
Well, I still harkening back to the Malibu days. I still remember one of our infamous employees, Dan Danko, that he took over one of the letter columns once. I don't know if you remember this, Roland. There was a Diane Botta.
Oh yeah.
And she had this thing called Ask Diane. And one time she was out of the office and Dan got to take over. And somebody asked this really detailed question. In issue 4, the guy had this cybernetic arm, but in issue 5, I didn't see this attachment to it. And he said, that's a very good question. And I'd like to explain that to you. It's great when we hear fans like you. He goes, unfortunately, I'm all out of room. And it was such like a Dan Danko moment. And literally he wrote it, he just put all this filler so he could get to the bottom of the letter page.
He's done. Out of room. Sorry.
Yeah.
We won't be doing that. We won't be taking that from Malibu.
No, we won't. That's a very Dan Danko thing to do.
Too funny.
Yeah. All right, so back to board games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You guys ever play Axis and Allies? That one was crazy. The amount of pieces.
Wasn't that
I
kind of
love
like
Axis
Risk?
and Allies, but that's not the one I brought down because the box is a lot bigger. I love war games, and Axis and Allies is something that I played a lot in college.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, that was a huge board and
Yes.
a huge amount of tiny pieces.
Yes, it's the whole world. Yeah,
Oh,
and you're dealing with industry and money and infantry, armor, artillery, fighter planes, bombers. You can do technological research. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
But did you ever play? So Curtis, I guess since you played that one, did you ever play the lesser known Axis and Allies game? It was like Axis and Allies, made by the same people, which I can't remember who it was, called Fortress America.
I've heard the name, but I didn't play it. What was that like?
So it's very much like Axis and Allies, except that it's one of these games where I want to say there's 6 players, 5 players take on 1. Right, there is 1 player who is Fortress America,
Wow.
and then there are 5 players invading from different points around. So you've got like the Chino pack, right? So then you got the Mexican or the Russian pack. I forget all of them now, but all 5 points from around all the way from Washington to New York invading the United States, and I literally 1 person had to take on 5 people.
Wow, this is a very like Reagan era kind of game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
So
it's funny.
Modern day though was the idea like?
No, it was set in the future. It was
was
a
it
future. It was slightly futuristic, not heavily, but slightly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. It's like the day of tomorrow, right? So some of not the day of 100 years, but the day of tomorrow. So some of the weapons are a little advanced, but yeah, it was really cool.
That's cool.
I remember you guys ever played the Star Wars miniature game? It's like a miniature. It's a board game but with miniatures. But I played the one we played spaceships. But apparently there's ones where you can play like the actual like rebels, like the people, like the Jedis. One that you can play like the X-wing fighters, and then there's one that you could play like the frigates or the huge ships. And people actually make entire games where you start out small as the people and move your way up to these huge galactic battles with frigates.
That's
Wow.
kind of
I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, that
never
is
heard of
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
miniatures are amazing. I mean, like artistry that some people do, especially for like Warhammer and those kind of like strategy.
Oh yeah.
It's absolutely insane. the amount
Well,
of work that they do.
I have a friend, and now again, I like war games. I have a friend who played Napoleonics, and he had like Napoleon's entire army in miniatures painted. And the thing about it is, he could look at them and tell you exactly who they are because he had them painted exactly the way the historical units were painted.
Oh,
So he could,
crazy.
yeah, he could tell you, I mean, that's the 55th, the Highlanders, or whatever they were. Right? That would be British troops, of course. But he could, because he painted them all and he knew all about the regiments and the armies, right? He could tell you exactly who they were. He had the whole. He had, if I'm not mistaken, at one point in time, he had every unit that was at the Battle of Waterloo.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you could fight the entire Battle of Waterloo with an accurate army, for both French and the I think it was British, and I don't think it was just the British there. Were the Austrians there at Waterloo?
Nothing.
I don't remember now. British and French in particular, right? But yeah, I played a lot of hours of Napoleonics with them. That was a lot of fun.
Is that like the tabletop where they kind of like a Warhammer?
Yes, very
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get a big ping pong table or something. Then they put some hills and some trees and some roads, and
Yeah.
your units move, and they move in column. They can move real fast, and then they branch out into battle line, and you have only so far that they're effective, and the closer you get, the more effective their firing is, and cannons can shoot so far, and they have strings that are marked off, right? This is how far this cannon can fire, and this is their arc of fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff I always like. I always see the Warhammer. That's the most popular. But games like that are always amazing. How people can make trees. Oh, they take like a styrofoam cup and then flip it over and make like a defense tower, and it just looks amazing. And I'm just like, oh my god, Yeah, I'm amazed what people can take and then just turn it into these like amazing set pieces.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's a really cool trailer for it's a video game, but for Halo, for one of the Halo games. And what they did for the trailer is they actually made like a Warhammer miniature set, and they filmed
cool.
it, and it's just all these static shots of the camera like going through the scene of all these tiny miniatures and explosions and like a medic helping a guy and all that. It's just really cool to see.
Which I'm sure everyone's like, so when is the Halo miniature game coming?
Yeah,
exactly.
So a lot of the games that I always like to play were always, this one's not quite like that, but this one has, has all the markers on it. This is the House Divided, so it's a Civil War game, right? And so it has all these tiny little pieces that are in bags, and that's how you those are the kinds of games that I played a lot of in college. I played a lot of games in college. I played more than I studied. As long as my mom and dad aren't listening, right? But yeah, and this is where I learned so many different games existed, because prior to that I was pretty much just risk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when you get into board games, the types of board games out there are crazy. I mean, like how long they take and all the different ideas and the miniatures and I mean, even at Kickstarter, when you do the board games, I mean, they make so much money, and there's such a huge especially strategic ones. But I think it's a little more like your war games, but they use like miniatures and stuff, like more fantasy type or even sci-fi ones. Yeah, that stuff.
I mean, I find it fascinating because we live in this day of video games, and believe me, I'm a big proponent of video games.
Yeah.
But there's something about things that are representative and allow you to fill in the gaps. And there's a kind of like this the visceral energy that you get from playing these kind of games and sitting across from somebody that even like the most amazing video game, it just doesn't convey the same thing, the same personality, and there's not that kind of freedom of play.
Yeah.
Well, and I think so this may be walking on territory that we don't need to walk on, and if it is, you got to stop me. But I think part of the problem with some games like this is that like comics, games, some of these games speak to a certain demographic, and I don't mean like male, female, whatever, but there's a demographic that's not real sociable. Right now, these are sociable games, of course, but think about it. Growing up, you didn't have a whole, or most of us didn't have a whole lot of people who shared our love of comics.
Yeah.
In the same way, I don't really know a whole lot of people who would sit down and play, Shiloh with me.
Mhm.
Oh, this is the whole game. Sorry, this is House Divided. I don't know that many people who would sit down and spend the hours that would play with me.
Yeah.
But when you introduce the internet, well, suddenly, I can find other people who share the same interest as me, and it's a lot easier to find someone who play. The thing I would argue about that, though, is it's not as fun, right? I want to
Yeah.
play games with my friends rather than play with some strangers online, if that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's a social ability that you learn from playing these games. Usually most people get into these games adolescence or maybe college, but there's a lot of social skills that you pick up from,
Right.
which is different than playing certain video games where there's a bit of anonymity, right? When you're
Yeah.
when you're when you're Wreckmaster 55, it's easy to
Right.
but no, totally. I mean, I'd have to agree with that.
Are you Wreckmaster 55, Kurt?
I'm Wreckmaster 56.
56. He's one up. Yeah, there's something. I actually agree with Curtis. I do have much more fun playing board games. Like if somebody said,
Yes.
like, do you want to play online video games or play a board game with your friends? Board game with my friends is always going to top. Always. I think also because me and my friends never take it super seriously.
Right.
I mean, we just have fun, roll some dice, and do some stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I've talked about this, and this is not a board game, but you're talking about your friends and not taking it seriously. I mean, I've mentioned this before. Friday night, I usually play games with, not always, but Friday night is kind of my game night with my. Actually, I mentioned them earlier, but Tim and Keith, who played Super World with me, all the way back in college. We still play, City of Heroes, which is still playing superheroes, right? So we get together online and we play superheroes. There are some people who take that game really seriously. We don't. We get on and we just have fun. And there are some people who, if you're ever attacking your opponent and you get killed or knocked out, right, it sends you to the hospital. There are some people who get really upset about that. I mean, really upset. We laugh about it. It's like, oh, look, you're dead. It's we don't take it that serious, and it is a little difficult sometimes when you ever get to playing with somebody who takes it super seriously, because you're like, oh, I need to straighten up then. Let me get all serious here. But yeah, I mean, it's a game. So.
I had that. I went to a game, board game meetup, the meetup groups you meet up, and every time I go to the board games, meetups, I always, it's like everybody knows each other and they all sit down and play their games. And you ask if you can join, like, no, you can't join us because you're not one of the crew. And so I'm like, okay.
Right.
But I was there and I was playing Gloomhaven at the time, and I got in a conversation with some guy there and I talked about Gloomhaven, and I said, yeah, me and my friends, we just found some of the rules too hard, so we made some house rules. And he looked at me like I just killed his cat. I mean, it was just like, you changed the rules. And I'm like, well, yeah, because he's like, I can teach you how to play Gloomhaven. Listen, and I'm just like, okay, whoa. You're really serious about this. I just kind of like back up a little bit. But yeah, I've encountered those people. And we don't take it seriously. But there are some people that literally will, like, you play by the rules, will argue about it.
Yeah.
I always thought it was interesting. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Like I thought there was going to be this neat confluence of, especially we're talking about like role playing games, of Dungeons and Dragons and online. Like decades ago, they had this first iteration of Neverwinter Nights. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh yeah.
It was like a Dungeons and Dragon online tool set where you can actually program characters, scenarios, visually, all this stuff. And it was just way too technically hard. But it was such a cool idea that you might actually be able to combine the two.
Right.
Well, so you guys know Steam, right? Steam. Yeah. So I assume that you can get it other places. I don't know, but there's a one of the apps that you can get up through Steam is called Tabletop Gaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you go on Tabletop Gaming, it has a buttload of tabletop games. It has this. It has Civilization. It has Axis and Allies. It has checkers and chess. It has basically it's full of tabletop games. You literally, it's all on the computer. So the four of us could sit down and play Access and
Yeah.
Allies if we wanted to.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's
that's
very
the
cool.
thing. I thought I've seen this, and they have like a ton of other games, and even like I think they have apps for people who play D&D online, like streaming, where you can roll the dice in the computer.
Yep.
And you can do other sort of like things like coordinate or whatever. And so yeah, it's strange. I think, and also especially in the time of the plague, people finding more ways to game
Right.
online together,
Yeah.
especially these type of board games they like.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Well,
it's such a part of. Sorry, Roland.
No, go ahead, Curtis.
No, but it's such a part of comic book culture. I mean, whenever you go to like one of the bigger cons, and Comic Con's no exception, there's that a whole gaming section. I mean, there's a whole.
Right.
They'll have part of the floor rented out for people to play games all the time. So
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I know one of the conventions that was very one of the very first conventions that ever invited me as a guest. Actually, the first convention that ever invited me as a guest. A place called Coast Con, and they were in a coliseum. Excuse me, they were attached to a coliseum, but they were on all the showrooms on the side, right?
Yeah.
Well, they had this big long section. It's just for miniatures, right? There must have been, I'm guessing now, but there must have been like 10 tables set up just for miniature gaming, right? So you could go there and you could see Napoleonics, you could see Warhammer, you could see all these different miniature games going on. But then there was another section over there that had the round tables, right? People sitting around and playing Dungeons and Dragons. They were playing Risk. They were just whatever. And to me, that's kind of cool because a lot of my friends went there to play Dungeons and Dragons, and they just sat around all weekend, played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Which is kind of weird that you would pay to do something.
I know.
Like you at
I
home.
always thought that.
I mean, it's like just find your friend's house and do it. But
Yeah.
I mean,
but some of it was, they're a little bit. Some of it was a couple of the guys had graduated, and so they had, they weren't in school anymore, and so that they would come back to the convention, and they would all be there, and then everyone could, play more Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a reunion of sorts, but not not in the way that you think of reunions.
we have
That makes sense.
Yeah, we have a board game store in Portland called Guardian Games. This is like the Toys R Us of video games. I mean,
Really?
when I went into the store, it's got to be like some of these shelves are close to like, I don't know, 10 feet high, stacked with board games. I mean, they
Wow.
had anything, and they split the store between just miniature role-playing games and then board games. I mean, I go in there and I see stuff I've never seen, but what you were talking about playing, the other back of the store is just filled with tables where they hold tournaments like Magic tournaments, board game tournaments, D&D, and they have an announcer. They have a guy in the store that does announcing for games, and I've been in
That's
there a
pretty
few
cool.
times. They've done tournaments, and apparently there's a room in the back with more tables, and you can drink beer there, so they
Oh,
can go
yeah.
back and hang out. Yeah, so I
Wait,
mean, it's
announcing
it's
for
really cool.
games. All
Yeah.
right, and now it's the troll's turn.
Yeah, it
And,
is.
and he draws his sword, and he rolls a 20 to hit. Oh, and he slashes it.
Now, I would listen to that all day. But yeah, I remember going into this store because I'd heard of this store, and I went in. I was like, "Oh my god, look at all this stuff!" Yeah, and of course, all those board games are super. Board games can be really expensive. All the
Oh,
ones that
yeah.
I'm like into are like $50-$70.
Right, exactly. And you saw this one. This one's a really light box, right?
Yeah.
Nothing like Civilization, right? I think Civilization was a $60 game. This is a $40 game, and I'm like, what the heck? There's nothing in here, but it's a cool box, but there's
Yeah.
nothing in here. Civilization. Now this is a hefty box. I mean, it's full, right? Heavy. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Gloomhaven was like 160. I split it
Well,
with my nephew.
I saw the when I Googled it, right?
Yeah.
129 on eBay for an open box, 132, 112,
Yeah,
126.
you get a lot. I mean, it definitely you get like your
Wait,
money's worth.
is
That's
this
for
right?
sure.
$25 on Humble Bundle.
Maybe. I think they were making a video game version of it, and I don't know if they ever completed the video game version. So I don't know. Maybe that was what that is.
If I can kind of break the top, just point out something cool Roberta's doing because she's doing such a great job here. it's like these little details. You can see somebody's understanding of color theory, right? So she's got the blue on one end of it, of that
Mhm.
syringe. Then she's got the green, but the green is composed, of course, of blue and yellow, right? So there's this harmony that she has going on here, and they're all kind of within that color family. It's just really cool when you get to see her workflow and how she thinks. You know, this is somebody. I mean, not somebody. This is Roberta. This is Roberta's an artist that really understands
the color, guys.
No, it's great. I love this part about the streams because you really get insight about the process, right? It's really
And she
great.
makes it look so easy, especially when she's just picking colors at random.
you know, as a joke, whoever's coloring, I dare you, I dare any of our colors, load up the page, but have like numbers in certain sections, like paint by numbers. Just do that. I think that would be so funny.
And then everybody watch you say like, yeah, everybody in comics numbers their pages like this with colors, and
exactly.
And then we make their own paint set and we send it to them. And
that'd be funny.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, Ted Gummit, that's another really good idea. A Silverline color by number book.
There you go.
I love that idea.
Or just the digital coloring book. I mean, people love doing those digital coloring books these days.
Yeah,
I love those. So cool. Yeah. Very cool stuff.
Y'all got to stop coming up with cool ideas.
No, give me more.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
You need more.
This is what. Yeah, I know. It's more stuff for me to do. You know, I will say though, continuing to chase rabbits. This is one of the things I love about the conglomerate that we are. Is that it's such a creative group. You know, BJ and I were talking about this the other day, and part of it is like this is why, you know, I want the mystery boxes to do well, is because there's so many ideas that people come up with. It's like, oh man, that'd be good if only we had money to do that. You know, that tends to be a common thing for us. Well, if only we had the money to do that, we could. You know, So you know, but I love that because this group is so full of ideas. And Roberta, we probably ask you, since you've been working on it.
Yeah.
What are you working on?
I'm working on Pendulum, the book 3 of Pendulum.
Wow. So
is that the last issue?
A vial of this serum that was stolen. It's a wonderful story, and I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah,
Great
that's right.
stuff.
It's the next to last, Aaron.
Okay.
There's 4 issues in it, so.
And that's by John Drury, right?
Yes, John Drury. If I'm not mistaken, I think John was the writer and the penciler, and then Ted Slampiak was the inker, right, Roberta?
Correct.
Yeah, Ted Slampiak. And a lot of people probably know Ted from doing Jazz Age Chronicles. He did Techno, he did something for Techno. But he also works on Manly Man. You ever seen those comics, the Manly Man comics?
I'm not too familiar.
Oh shoot! I'm getting it wrong. Manly Man Company, I think. Manly Man. I thought it was a Manly Man Company.
Are you thinking of Curtis's company? Yes, that's mine.
Curtis
Master 56, a member of Manly Man Company.
All our comics are printed on burlap.
Burlap, yeah.
Oh, what? Maybe I get it wrong. Manly Man, Ted Slampiak. Let me try that. Ted Slampiak.
I remember I got to do a convention with
The Art of Manliness.
Oh, The Art of Manliness.
Art of Manliness.
Okay. Have you ever seen any of those cartoons? The Art of Manliness?
No.
Those are all Ted Slampiak.
I have to check those out.
Yeah, it's just the art. Look for the Art of Manliness. Artofmanliness.com. He does all the artwork for all their illustrations. Is like the first one that pops up. How to give a manly handshake, right? And it's got 2 cowboy-looking guys, and they're shaking hands. And one of them says, "Approach person's line of sight," and has little lines drawn straight to their eyes. Right? Look person in the eye and smile. And it says, there's a picture. It says, "No limp fish," right in the handshake. And it said, firm grip, no death grip, right?
No death grip. That's true. Yes.
Yeah, it's the art of manliness. Yeah, I can't. If you've heard of Ted, that's probably where you know him from, because these are fairly popular from what I understand. They've been around for a long time, but
That's cool.
yeah. So yeah, very cool. So this is one of the books that's in our remix plan, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So and we got to talk more about that really cool thing that you dropped. It was like, whoa, cool. Yeah, we got to figure out the right place for it. So, and it looks like also it looks like I probably got us. I know it's a little bit early, but I think I've got us a 2021 sponsor. So, yep, excited about that. Yep.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, I'm excited. I know a lot of people have decried 2020, and I get it. But I think for us, for Silverline, I think it's not been a horrible year.
No.
Collectively, not individually. I know that it's been tough individually for some more than others, but I think collectively, you know, So
Yeah, next year, hopefully conventions. I mean, I would assume hopefully by summer maybe conventions might.
I
be
hope
coming
so.
back.
Well, I'm doing one this weekend. I'm
Oh,
doing
yeah?
I'm doing a 1-day show in Kissimmee, Florida, which is about an hour south of me. And then I'm slated to do one in a place called DeLand, Florida, which is on January 17th, I think.
Cool.
So yeah, so hopefully they're getting back in the groove and getting it all started again.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, right?
There's been I was reading somewhere that there are some that have actually some of the conventions that owned in the town that are not coming back. I don't remember the names of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, hopefully they will. I
Well,
mean,
I think, excuse me, I think some of what happened, if I understand it right, is a lot of these conventions have to pay up front for hotel rooms. They have to book hotel rooms and like guarantee pay. Same thing for the convention centers and things like that. And if your convention gets canceled, like I know that there was one convention that's like, okay, here's the deal. If we can't get any refunds, we're done. You know, but if we can refund, like I know San Diego made a big deal about saying, hey, the convention center refunded them, all the hotels refunded them, so they were able to get refunds, and then they were just able to take that into the next year. But there were a couple of conventions that I think the forums weren't willing to work with them, and so it just killed them. It's like, okay, well, you're going to take all my money, and I can't recoup any money from an actual show. Then it just killed them, which is sad.
Yeah, I'm gonna, obviously I don't think San Diego Comic Con is gonna come back the way it was in quite a while. Conventions probably will come back, but yeah, I think that's kind of dovetailing into some different territory. But I think our industry is changing.
I do too.
It's a return kind of back to more of a grassroots kind of feel to everything, and that may not be a bad thing. I mean, I love the fact that I can see a ton of Marvel movies and all that, but when something becomes mainstream, you lose something along the way. And I think it's kind of time for us to kind of recharge our batteries. And, I think in that sense, it's a good thing,
I think sometimes you kind of lose. I know this some may sound a little, I don't know, just my opinion, pompous on mine, but sometimes I feel like you kind of lose the creativity a little. In other words, everything is so marketed towards getting the most viewers or appealing to the most people that sometimes you lose really good, unique ideas that are good. I mean, like for example, like with the popularity of superheroes, like I couldn't see them writing a story like the Dark Phoenix, where somebody actually, the seriousness of that, and that's kind of like sometimes where I feel it kind of falters. I think grassroots stuff is, especially when you give, if they feel like they're just writing what they want to write or what they think is cool, and the other friends are going to think is cool, instead of trying to be like, well, we got to appeal to all this market share, this massive people.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's that idea, like when you create art and you feel like you have nothing to lose, what would you do?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, we're kind of talking about remix, we're talking about the original era of Silverline, right? That was a phenomenal era of independent comics. And there was a fearlessness at that time where there wasn't any should I or should I not do this. It was almost like, is this cool? Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now there's so much committee. There's I'm not gonna name names, but there's the whole internet committee that you have to run your things by. If it's big business, there's the corporate committee and how's this going to translate
Yeah.
to film. But I think it's time to return to that thing. Is it cool? Yeah, it's cool.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Curtis, because one of the things that I always tell the story. People ask me, well, you were an editor at Malibu, and then Marvel came in, and then you became kind of a Marvel editor. It's like, what was the difference? I was like, well, aside from the fact that Spider-Man came on my paycheck when Marvel bought us, which was very cool. See, here's the way I would always say, kind of explain the difference. If you came to me with an idea, and this is what at Malibu, and I liked the idea, and was like, okay, this is a really cool idea. Let me run it up the chain, right? And I could take it to Chris or whoever editorial, and then they liked it, and then we got it to the money people. Their question was this, and you have to listen real carefully, right? Their question was, can we make money? And if you could answer with the bean counters and everything, if you could answer yes to that, then they would say, okay, let's do it, right? Now, same scenario, but when you're with Marvel, right, you get up to the money making, the money decision makers, right? And the question became, how much money can we make?
Yeah.
It wasn't about can we make money, it was about how much. And if it wasn't enough, it wasn't worth doing. Where when Malibu was doing it, it's like, okay, well, if we can make money, let's do it, right? Why not?
Yeah.
And I think there was a big for me, it was a big mentality shift that I'm like, but I really like comics, and if this is something cool, we should do it, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't always the case.
Well, it's like if I can share that story about Dead Clown, we were talking this.
Yeah.
Well, this was just such. I still distinctly remember. So Malibu had this kind of really out there comic book called Dead Clown, and it was literally that. It was like a zombie clown, and so the initials of the characters was DC, and I think it was the characters created by Chris Olm, the gentleman who was the editor in chief. And I remember on one issue, because Roland was the editor, that issue it looked like the DC Comics logo, but it was composed out of bones, and it just said DC, but it was for Dead Clown. And I remember being at Roland's desk, and our lawyer Will coming over and saying to Roland, like, okay, we got the cease and desist from DC saying, hey, you can't do this because it looks like our DC bullet. And I still to this day recall Roland saying, yeah, just tell DC we knew we could get away with it at least once.
You get away with it at least once.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Dead Clown.
This issue number 3.
But one of the issues it looked like the DC logo with
that was number 1, I think.
Yeah. But I remember Roland didn't miss a beat. He just immediately goes, yeah, we knew they were going to send us a cease and desist, but we didn't get away with it once. And like, that's cool, That's,
once it's out in the wild, it's like, oh, well, we'll cease and desist. Yeah, now.
Okay, we won't do it again. We're sorry.
Well, I think that's the thing I like so much about comics that attracts me to comic books more than, like, say, movies and TV. Is basically comics, you just feel like you get all these really crazy, weird ideas, and it really feels like it's coming from like a passion of people who really into the story. It seems movies and TV sometimes seem very watered down to me, not risk takers. But comics, you can just find so many different things, and people do so many crazy things because most people writing comics goes like, well, no one's going to read this anyways. It's just me. And then of course people read it and like it. Right. I mean, can you imagine like them making like say like the Ninja Turtles in movies? I mean, that would never happen. But comics, you can get stuff like that all the time.
Right.
And
and I think part of it is because there's so much money wrapped up in that the film and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is that they're not willing to take chances because it's more about, okay, well, if we do this, we might lose part of our audience, and we've got so much money wrapped up into it, we can't take that risk. When you don't have as much money wrapped up in it, then I think you're able to take a little bit more risk.
Well, that's why I'm kind of excited, even though it's kind of scary for the film industry. If you folks heard about Warner Brothers said their entire 2021 catalog is going to go straight to streaming, right?
Yeah.
At the same time as theatrical, but really we know it's going to be streaming mainly. That means budgets are going to go down on mega blockbusters. We won't see an Avengers Endgame, at least in the next decade or so, if that. But that means there'll be less money as far as budget, which means you might get more unique stories. And especially, I have a film probably going more towards serialized content even more than before. And what I'm hoping is for those of us in the comic book industry, and when things get adapted from comic books, maybe there might be potential for more unique comic books getting adapted. Maybe they'll be adapted more true to the source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The budget won't be a huge blockbuster film. It'll be 12 episodes on Netflix or something.
Well, we've strayed from board games, but you talking about serialized? Did any of you ever watch the Sharps movies?
No.
Sharps. There was about a dozen of them. Surprised you haven't. Sean Bean was in those.
Okay.
Does he die in every one?
No. In fact, quite the opposite, because it starts off with him as a private, and it says TV series. It must have been a series of TV movies.
Oh, okay.
I watched them on DVDs. I watched them on DVDs. But there's 16 of them.
Wow.
The first one was Sharps Rifles, and then Sharps Eagle, Sharps Company, Sharps Enemy, Sharps Honor, etc., etc., etc. And the dates, it starts off in 1809, and the last one was in 1818. Really, if you like history and that kind of stuff, really, really good series of movies. Let me see if it will actually show how long. There were a series of movies, but I don't know if I see the link here.
I will give props. I think Warner Brothers has kind of taken their first step. I mean, not knowing what's going to happen because of the COVID and things opening next year. I think they were the kind of ones that kind of took almost a step of like, well, we either do something like this or we may end up not going under but really hurting us. Like, can we wait on theaters forever, or do we just get this? I mean they're releasing the new Wonder Woman movie on Christmas Day on HBO Max, and it's like, I think it's to a point, it's like, look, we got to get this stuff out there because we've got other stuff we've made waiting in the wings that we need to get out. So it's
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman was supposed to have been released in May?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't like the idea of HBO only, because I don't have HBO, and it's like, okay, well, it just means that I'm either going to pirate it, right? Which it's against all of my, to do.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to see it. And, it's Wonder Woman. I want to see Wonder Woman,
Yeah. I think it's like HBO Max, I think it's its own service. And I looked on PlayStation 4 and it said, now, I don't know, I haven't tried this, but it said like it was a free app. Now that didn't make much.
It's not a subscription.
Yeah, the app's free.
The app's free.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like the app's free or whatever. So yes.
Speaking of apps, I would like to have a Silverline app. I'm not sure what it would do, but I would like to have a Silverline app.
It could be one of those Snapchat things where it puts the mask, the cat and mouse mask on your face or something.
That would be so cool.
Or the demon's ears. That would be fun.
So here's another idea I did come
Send it to our R&D department.
That's right. Yeah. So, all right. Any final words on board games? Any final thoughts?
No, just good luck finding players.
I said no one let me bring up Stratego, which was my favorite game when I was a kid.
Holy crap! You play Stratego?
I love Stratego.
Oh man, I used to play that game all the time.
That game, and it's like such an awesome game.
It is. Yep. I actually, it's funny that you mentioned that game. I actually played that with my kids when they were coming up. We bought a Stratego game, and I played that with them.
Nice.
Oh, it's great.
Yep.
It is so fun.
It is fun. It's basically capture the flag with a mystery.
With bombs.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're screwed when you it's the minor. Minors are number 8s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you lose your last minor, you're screwed.
You have no hope.
You're like, well.
I've never played it. I didn't play a lot of those games. Yeah, and I guess I didn't play. My family wasn't really into strategic games. You're more like checkers, stuff like that. Uno.
Wait, checkers is not strategic?
Yeah, sure.
Not as strategic. I don't know. Maybe is it? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I have to draw you in to make you jump my checker so that I can triple jump you. Yeah. Yeah, Stratego, man. I hadn't thought about that one. Yeah, that's a great one.
Thank you. I wanted to mention that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you did. It's like we can't end the session without I'm mentioning that. Anything else on board games?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I don't play board games as much as I used to. I still, as demonstrated by my visual aids here, I still have a handful of them. But you know, the last time I brought this out was to do something very similar to what I'm doing now. It was just to tell somebody about it. You know? So yeah, I played some board games with both my kids when they were younger, but and BJ and I have talked about playing backgammon some more, but we just haven't done it. So
Time to break it out.
it is, yeah. I hopefully over Christmas we'll have some time to do some of that. But yeah, no, I don't see any comments up here. No one's saying ask us any questions. So, all right, let me see if I can find out what real quick what our topic is for next week.
And folks, don't forget to check out our merch store.
Yep.
It's holiday time, so nothing says "I love you" to your wife than a mug with demon on it. With the demon.
That's right.
There you go.
I keep thinking one's going to show up for me, but I don't have.
And Curtis is talking from personal experience because his wife, like, that made her day when she got the demons.
Well, I have a schedule somewhere of stream. But it's been so long since it feels like it's been so long since we've done this. I don't know where it is now.
Half a pendulum.
Oh, that looks good. That's such a good looking page. Wow.
Love that.
Thank you.
So just stay posted because I don't seem to be able to find the streaming schedule. So stay put. We will stream on Wednesday, and we'll actually launch these live. We'll launch these things live. So y'all be ready because I'll go ahead and talk about more as we get started for the mystery boxes. But we will start that on Wednesday. So y'all be here for that, and we'll announce what we're talking about as we get closer to it because I can't find my subject list of what we're talking about now. Royal Airship says it's going to be a Silverline Christmas this year. Mugs and shirts for everyone. Wore my Silverline shirt to Dollywood. Should have taken a photo. You should have taken a photo standing in front of the Dollywood sign. Yeah. Maybe you could have found Dolly there too. So, all right. Well, let's go around and tell everybody where you can find yourselves. Curtis, where can folks find you online?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook, Curtis Fujita. You can also find me on Instagram and YouTube through my martial arts school. That's Tiger Crane, one word, 805. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Aaron, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Facebook. You can find me, and I have, I think, Aaron Humphreys, my own. And I kind of post the same thing to both. I have Humphreys Illustration, HUMPHRES, then illustration. You'll find it. Instagram at ALH3810. I really need to change that handle. I keep it because my business card store have that. So when my business cards run out, then I'm changing the handle. So that's how it's going. And then of course on WebToons.
And shucks, you ordered 1,000 of them from Vistaprint, didn't you?
Yeah. So and then on WebToons, I'm starting to post issue 9 of my comic. So that has been, and that should be posting tomorrow. A new episode.
Sweet.
Tomorrow.
That'd be great.
Roberta, what about you? Where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me under Roberta Conroy on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, also under Roby Conroy if you look for that. It helps a little bit because there's apparently too many Robertas.
Well, and as a reminder, I'll have all the links in the appropriate place here so that you can go find us on Twitter. You can find us I was looking at Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook. I'll make the appropriate links there. Tommy Flormani just says, I'm late. Can y'all start over? Yeah, in about
no problem.
Tommy, in about 2 minutes, just hit refresh and hit play, and it'll start all over. You'll all over the very beginning. You won't miss a thing.
Tommy gave me an idea. I think you're saying we're trying to figure out what we should stream in the holiday weeks. we should have the Wednesday Wham guys do an audio commentary of our Silverline Sunday stream, and we should do an audio commentary of the Wednesday Wham guys. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that would be good.
See if I could figure out how to make that go live though,
Uh-huh.
because we'd have to record it, right? Because
Yeah.
that was you'll be there. Right? If I can figure out how to make that go live, I'm playing with this new video service that will. It looks like it'll let me schedule it to appear live, but I don't know how to get it to other locations yet. So, so I'm still fiddling around with that to see what we can do. Okay, and I'm Roland. You can find me at Man Roland at Instagram, and no, Man Roland at Twitter, Roland Man on Facebook and Instagram, and silverlinecomics.com is the website. Go there, and then I'll direct you to all the important places you need to be. Anything else? Any final thoughts for you guys?
I think just one thing, even though they're not here with us, our regulars, Peter Clinton and John Martin, both are doing some really cool specials with their art and their commission.
Oh yeah.
So check them out. You can find John Martin on Facebook, just JOHN Martin, and then Peter Clinton, I think on all the different social media. I think it's Peter Clinton Art, just one word.
Yep.
They're doing some really cool specials if you guys want original artwork. So,
Yep. Yeah. You guys can get some original artwork and help them out as well. So so do that. Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, you know the routine, guys. Until next time, remember, make mine Silverline. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Take care. Have a good one, folks.